Joining us this morning to discuss the current security situation in the Federal Capital Territory and the country at large is security expert and managing director, PR24 Risk Management Consultant, Onyekachi Adekoya. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to your viewers, and thank you for having me.
All right. Interesting start to 2024. There's those who say that nothing really has changed. We don't expect to see any improvement. All we are seeing really is, is a continuation from where we were last year with kidnapping and, banditry and terrorism and whatnot. Do you agree with that? Do you think that maybe somehow, some way, the new administration will, understands things better, and has maybe put things better in place, to tackle the situation?
Well, there are two questions you're asking there. Number one, if things are, is it business as usual? That's the first question.
Yeah.
Then the second part of the question, as I understand it, is does this government yet have a full grasp of the issues? To the first question, is it business as usual? It's an absolute yes. And based on the crime stats, the uptick in cases of kidnapping, the hydra-headed nature, hydra-headed and widely dispersed nature of the problems we are confronting, and the challenges they pose to our national unity, our national cohesion, and of course, how they dent our national interests in projecting Nigeria's own interests in West Africa and across the continent. So it is business as usual. It's also business as usual because we are doing the things that we have done consistently, I would say, for the last 30 to 35 years, hoping to have the same results, still locked in the colonial, the challenges of the colonial era. Because remember that what we have as a security architecture, if I use the word architecture, was really set up not for the purpose of projecting and protecting human security. You just have more or less regime protection and keeping the people within line and within check as the objective of security. So that's the first question. And it's not a challenge of any one administration. It's a societal problem. It's a misfit in approach to security. Because a security architecture that is over 45 years old in a Nigeria today that has a population larger than Britain, that has a population of about 220 million people, more diverse, with the advent of technology, social media, people have become a bit more savvy. So that's on the one hand. Two, this administration, we had done an analysis and then projected that it would take the administration just about 1 year to be able to settle down and get a sense of the issues. And that's 1 year to understand the problem before they begin to address the problem. If you say that the budget is a policy document, this administration just passed its budget to law. And that is the document that outlines the policy action for the administration. The budget has not yet, maybe they've started implementing it. Even when you begin to implement budget, you also must give a lag time for implementation of budget. So by my assessment, before this administration can begin to get a grasp of the issues, it may be till the end of this year. Given the fact that the courts just pretty much resolved all the issues around governance and the rest, we can now begin to see these people settle down and perhaps with the right advice and try our attempt to get a proper sense of what is happening before developing and going forward with the solution. So it appears that we're in need for a long haul and there's no quick fix to the problem, at least not for now. And to just add, there's nothing to yet indicate that the government understands the problem or the dimension of the problem yet. So that's the way we assess it based on what we're seeing.
Okay, let's talk about basically the fact that right now what we're saying is the business of kidnapping is becoming very, very lucrative. It's looking lucrative to a number of these bandits. Over the weekend and the past few weeks, we've seen, unfortunately, crowdfunding being done online to raise the money for the ransom for these kids. And whilst I totally and completely agree that everyone, every family member, and every Nigerian should do whatever we need to do to bring out those in captivity, there are those who share concerns that they fear that the fact that we started to crowdfund will signal to the kidnappers that this is a lucrative business and might further incidences of kidnapping. Is this a valid fear? And do you have ideas on ways we can navigate this terrain?
This matter of crowdfunding is a very touchy issue. It's like being between the devil and the deep blue sea. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And I can understand the perspective from the family members who don't care, really. All they just want to do is to see their loved ones out of captivity. Again, it's a problem of the failure of governance and a failure of security. So if you do a root cause analysis, the crowdfunding, yes, is a problem, but it's not the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is what I've said, the hydra-headed, greatly dispersed nature of the threat we confront against a unitaristic, centralist approach to security. And this is like the case of Nigeria is how old now? Maybe a 60-something-year-old, let's even say a 70-something-year-old man, not saying Nigeria is that old, but a 70-something-year-old man chasing children that are fleet-footed in their earlies, in their prime, maybe say 14, 15, 16. There is no way that old man is going to catch up in a 100-meter dash with the children. So this is the real problem. We are too flat-footed. We are lost in time in how we approach and confront these issues. And no, it's not a problem of technology, really. It's a nuanced problem. It's a social construct problem. It's also an ideological problem, really. We are lost completely understanding what we need to do. But the problems, and when you ask about solutions, we must go local. Every sensible approach to security is a local one. We must take command to where command is needed. We must localize initiative. You know, right now, because of the way these people are dispersed and very mobile, initiative is with the assailants and the attackers. And now because the return is like a risk to return, the return is higher than the risk. The risk is also almost non-existent. Because if you put a DPO with 20 persons in a local government, he has to cover a drive time of about 6-7 hours. There's some local governments like that. And then you have a marauding group of 200 people attacking. That DPO and the formation you have there does not stand a chance in 200 years of confronting and putting these people in their place. So that's the problem. The problem is not the crowdfunding. And yes, the crowdfunding is bad. We often say the politicians who don't understand the technicalities of security. Security is as any technical department, as you have any technical function. A medical doctor, it's a professional field, like you have architecture. You cannot have carpenters come out and begin to talk about the issue of security. Case in point, not calling the former minister a carpenter, but it's an absurdity. When you come outside and you then begin to politicize and trivialize the matters at hand, we were pulling our hairs. Sorry, I don't have any hair on my head, but literally just beating ourselves sore. That, you know, it's only in Nigeria absurdities like this can occur. It's a total aberration. And this high sum of kidnaps started in Nigeria when you had the Abuja Kaduna train attack, when you had politics and politicians involved. You started hearing sums like 300 and something million. Now we have seen 700 million. The next thing we most likely may see is a demand for 1 billion.
Yeah.
So those are the issues, really.
Yeah, I also want to ask, you know, from a security perspective or analytic, perspective, what do they do with the money? I know you may not, have proper details, but what do they do with 300 million naira, that they've collected from ransom? Does this money get circled back into buying weapons and the likes? Or do they build houses, do they send their kids abroad?
Or send it to an offshore account?
Or, so help us understand why this will turn into a lucrative business. Where does the money head to? And, in what ways can we also tackle it from that aspect. If we can cut off funding or we can trace the money, in some direction, maybe that would also help us, destroy this ring.
Well, sorry I chuckled at the question, but I would say that it's one of the most interesting questions I've had anybody ask me. What a question, really. What do they do with the money? There's a value chain you must understand. There are people who spot. There are people who get the food. There's a medical chain because these people are stocks that must be fed and cared for. There are people who house them. There are people who warehouse the weapons. There are people who run the munitions for them. There are people who seek to infiltrate law enforcement and corrupt the system to keep their systems going. You'll be shocked, but they do have legal advice. They also, by their maneuver warfare type of approach, they also have good military advice. They also have international alliances. Some of these people are linked up to transnational criminal groups within the Sahel. Yes, and they marry wives. They live in communities. They are embedded with the people. We've had cases of some popular bandit called Dogo or something like that, marrying almost 4, 6 wives, living very large in his area of operation and dominance. And more importantly, they restock and they arm up. If you are a trader or a business person, whatever tools of trade you use for your trade, if you've grown from 50 million to 700 million, it means that you're now in the big league. And then your equipment set must also change. So they also stock up on high-powered rifles. And that's why sometimes when law enforcement go to respond, they must also tactically also remove themselves from the effective killing range of some of these assault weapons that these people carry. And that's why you're seeing now the Nigerian army is now trying to deploy over the horizon munitions, particularly drones, to get above these people and try and inflict some damage on them. So they just stock up, and maybe we may begin to see them also deploy anti-drone systems, because if we're now going into the region of 700 million, 1 billion, and we see sometimes they also request for this money in foreign currency. So that's what happens. It's an expanded chain. We've seen cases in Nigeria where traditional rulers have been accused of aiding and abetting some of these people. We've seen cases and claims where that if they are arrested and they move some big man somewhere calls the police, we don't know how true this is, but some of these things have been reported to have occurred. So the money goes into effective use, I would say, by their own standards.
As quickly as possible, talk to us about why it's difficult to trace these monies. There's a reason why they were hounding Nigerians to do the NIN, BVN, and all the registrations and merging of data. So why is it difficult to trace these monies?
This question again. Honestly, Nigeria is we joke a lot in this country. That's the honest truth. We copy and paste, but we copy and paste out of context. You have NIN, you have BVN, you have your passport number. Biometrics are captured in some of all these things. The data, law enforcement does not have visibility over the data. The NI has intelligence. There's the security coordinator, who is for the country, who is the NSA, what we call NSA, which is not even a name enshrined in proper speak, should have visibility of what the DSS, DMI, DIA, even the police intelligence, what they have. But everybody has intelligence in a siloed way. Everybody has data, it's all siloed. There's no complete integration. And even the security for that kind of data center is something that is serious that we have to be looking at. There have been reports that they even collect money through the banks, through POS operators. So there's the law enforcement can I think the bigger problem is law enforcement is overwhelmed. If you have the Supreme Court, for example, having over 8,000 cases pending while it's addressing electoral issues, you cascade down a bit. You may have an IPO who has almost 300 cases to handle also. And it's just one man. He's not provided logistics. Maybe some reports suggest that the DPOs get 10,000 every month to fuel their entire police station. And then you want these people to be effective. So there's a lot of, that's why I say it's a chaotic mess, what we do. Speaking to one retired DSS official, he had told me once that Nigeria's security architecture is based on luck. Basically, the hope in wait that nothing bad happens, not because that there's a system in place that can fully comprehend and apprehend the issue. So that is what you are seeing. It's a chaotic mess in Plateau, in Abuja, in Sokoto, in Katsina. We have now almost normalized what would societally should be an aberration. So we are now in that state of trauma as a country, where it's almost normal now to hear that 10 people, 50 people die every day. And we've normalized it. So that's how traumatic the mess is. And unfortunately, the politicians are not getting good advice. You need advice. They say, it's a retired major general, come and speak to him. He may be a retired major general, but not a combatant major general. He may be a retired major general, but somebody in admin, in finance, maybe in signals. That doesn't make him a security expert. He may be a combatant in warfare and dealing with statecraft issues. It doesn't make him a public safety or public order expert. You see, so just the sense that an NSA must be retired this or retired that, or a true security expert must be, it reinforces what we are going through as a country. We are holed up in an ideology that is lost completely in time, that cannot address the issues. So we continue to grapple with this. Unfortunately, this is not the last time we will be having conversations on issues like this. You just watch and see. Unfortunately, that's how Nigeria is. That's the mess we're in.
Yeah, it's frightening, and like you said, the current administration still doesn't seem to have a grasp of what's going on. They're still dancing, still putting out vague public statements, talking about, increasing investment in education to tackle security and stuff like that. It's heartbreaking. But thank you very much for your time, as always. And we will continue to monitor it from our end. We hope that, of course, things improve. Onyekachi Adekoya, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.